Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, here we go. Fade to Black. Yeah, today's Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Help support the show. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do around here. We broadcast the news 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. We have Fade to Black Monday through Thursday each night. The best and brightest guests are on this show. And then on Thursdays, we do 3 shows. We do the news, then we're on with Christina Gomez, and then we do Fade to Black. And so it's very busy around here. We've got a great team. Help support everything that we do. And it's simple. Just get a Fade to Black t-shirt. There's 2 ways to get them. You can get a Game Changer membership, and you can just order a t-shirt. Now we have 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get a Game Changer membership. You take your choice of shirts, right? But if you order a t-shirt, order both. Order both, and everything is autographed, and everything includes shipping. Now, I'm going to do this tonight and tomorrow. The next 4 Game Changer memberships between tonight and tomorrow, because we'll be shipping on Friday. Between tonight and tomorrow, you're going to get Fade to Black Blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. Okay, so the next 4. Next week, I'm going to give away some other really cool stuff too as well with those Game Changer memberships. So the next 4. If there's more than 4, then I'll throw in a really cool book or something. But I'll do all of this tonight and tomorrow night. So the next 4, okay? Fade to Black Blend coffee. Whole bean, best coffee in the world. There it is. And I'll tell you what I'll do? Because my picture is on it, right? It's right there. I'll sign this in gold. I'll sign all of the coffees for you too as well. All right. And there you go. I had some coffee shipped to me for the Conscious Life Expo. So what do? I give it away. So the next 4, okay? The next 4 Game Changer memberships. And now, what was I thought that I had something important to say, but it doesn't matter. Great week on Fade to Black. Monday night, we had Maureen Seberg with us. Last night, Sheila Seppi was here. She's always amazing. Tonight, it's Scott Wolter. He is back. He says he has new Templar documents. We'll find out. So I wrote Scott, my good friend, Scott. I said, hey, Scott, you're going to be on the show tonight. You say you have new Templar documents. Send them to me so I can put them on the show. You know what he did? He writes me back and says, I can't send you anything. I said, well, we're doing the show tonight. What do you mean you can't send me documents? But that's Scott. What are you going to do? He's upset because the Minnesota Vikings lost. And so he said no more Templar documents until the Vikings win the Super Bowl. Yeah, so you know what that means? Never. We're never going to see the Templar documents. Thursday night, Fritz Zimmerman is here. We are going to be talking about, this is tomorrow night, the dark side of ancient America. Now, last week when the fires kicked off here in Los Angeles, and the apocalypse had started, we had to cancel that night on the show. There was lots of things that was going on, including electricity. Well, of course, the fires that were burning, but internet issues and a lot of things happened all at the same time. So we couldn't do that show. So we rebooked Fritz. He's gracious enough to come back with us tomorrow night. And we're going to be talking about his new book, The Dark Side of Ancient America. Now, I have five major events coming up. I have more, but this is the first half of 2025. I've got the Conscious Life Expo that's coming up here in just a couple of weeks, February 7th through the 10th in Los Angeles, California at the LAX Hilton. I am the host of this event once again this year, and come and hang out with all of us. Then is the Rise of the Guardians. This is March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. Right after that, Contact Modalities Expo. That's right. I'm heading to the Midwest to hang out with Scott and Haley, and we'll be talking about that event. That is at Delavan Lake in Delavan, Wisconsin. That's May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then after that, Contact in the Desert. Yes. Once again, this year I will be there May 29th through June 2nd in Palm Springs, California. Right after that, I head back to Peru with Brian Forrester for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. This is June 17th through the 27th, 2025. I'll be going to Peru twice this year. This is the first one. The second tour will be in November. Now, all of the information that you need are in the links below for all of the events, tickets, speakers, what's going on, schedules, and that kind of thing. And the same thing with Hidden Inca Tours. We've just got a handful of spots left for this trip in June. And then we have the second trip that will be in November. All right. I'm excited about the show. Scott Wolter is back. And I'll say that it's been a minute since Scott has been on the show. And he's normally with us once a month, every other month. And we've been doing that for well over 10 years. He's busy. Every time I want to get Scott on the show, him and Haley are somewhere in Europe wandering around some crazy Templar castle in Scotland. And but I've got him this week. And it was so funny. I called Michelle. I said, okay, we got Scott. Scott's in town. And I said, just get him booked. Well, we had him booked for Monday, and then he canceled. Yeah, he canceled this week. He canceled Monday night. And I said to Michelle, when she lets me know on Sunday, this is the night before the show, right? So, Michelle, you guys want to hear this? I know you do, because it's good. Michelle said, she goes, Scott canceled for tomorrow night. And my response, I should almost read it on the air. I'm not going to say what I said to Michelle, but I said, he better have a really good excuse. She goes, I can't tell you why. I said, I knew it. She goes, you're going to be mad. And I said, what is it? Minnesota is the playoffs, man. Minnesota, what? And then I calmed down and I texted Michelle back and I said, I understand. I do. But he's not busy on Tuesday. So we got him booked for tonight. Scott Wolter is back. And now here's the deal. Of course, host of America Unearthed and other things. But we're going to talk about the Knights Templar tonight. Is there a connection to ET? We might jump into that. But Scott let us know that he's got some more Templar documents in. And I've got some images. Oh, I just blew it. I blew my game. I said, Scott didn't send me anything. I don't have anything. Everybody. I don't have anything. You know what Scott did do? And then I'll bring him in. He shows them to me on the camera. Haley comes over. Jimmy, they're amazing. I said, send them to me. I can't. That's what I put up with Scott Wolter. He's the absolute very best. I want to take this moment to say, Fade to Black welcomes back to the show, Mr. Scott Wolter. How was that for a show? How?
Oh, sorry, Jimmy. I was crying in my beer still. That damn game.
No, we're not talking sports tonight, but did everything that I just say, was it the truth?
Most of it.
Most
of it. You said I didn't share
Christ.
any documents with you, and you just blew
your
own intro.
Yeah, I did. I blew it. I truly did. Scott, welcome back. How you guys doing? It's the new year, and everything good in your world?
Everything's great. 2025 is I just have a feeling it's going to be a year where a lot of really crazy things happen, not just in our world, but I think in the world. So, and I think, a good sign are these documents that came to us literally in the last week. And Haley's sitting next to me here, working feverishly, trying to decode the one that I flashed to you. And the only reason I'm not going to show you that document right now is because we don't know what it says. The one that came a week ago, we decoded, and that's the one we're going to talk about tonight. But Jimmy, you got to admit, I know you've read the message.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is. It is incredible. What I find really interesting, Scott, and in a weird way, I love my job, but you've got a pretty cool gig. And you know that I just love ancient history, and probably more. Of course, it's loving ancient history in the past and studying that. But for me, it's trying to unravel the bullshit about ancient history.
Yeah.
Right. Because none of us were there. So, and this is where we're going to start off tonight. I truly believe that probably the greatest, best, and most destructive weapon ever created by humans has been the lie. Okay? That's a weapon, and it's been weaponized since the beginning of time. Now, today, you have the tools to go and start to unravel ancient history. But back then, the lie started, and civilizations didn't have a way to question stuff, right? They didn't have, you believed the lie, and the lie was weaponized. And today, it's your job to go and look at what we have that's been preserved from the past and decode it and figure out the real truth. Now, would you agree with that the lie has been weaponized and now it's up to us to figure out what the real truth is?
Yes, I would. I think that you hit the nail on the head, and it's with us to this day, as much as it's ever been. And, part of the problem, Jimmy, is the lie is effective, even more effective when you're dealing with a group of people that, and I don't want to make it sound like they're not smart, because the intelligence is there, but you also have to be educated. You have to be able to be taught things like critical thinking, so that when somebody tells you some information, you can at least take a step back and say, you know what, this makes sense. Or you step back and say, this sounds like BS. But if you're not educated, or if you're not versed in a particular subject matter, and, I'm just going to go there right now. I'm going to use the example of the Roman Church and the fact that for a long period of time, the majority of the population was not educated to the point where, for example, they could read the Bible on their own and interpret it for themselves. What happened was you had the clergy that was educated, that would tell the people what the Bible said. And it may or may not have been the truth. It may have served the church's purpose and their ends more than it served the people that they were preaching to. Now, some people might not, like what I
Well,
just
even
said,
if you
but
had
it's true.
back then, but here's the crazy part though. Back then, even if you had access to a Bible or a Gutenberg Bible or papyrus or whatever, something that was scribed, you couldn't read, right?
Right.
So you could hold all the documents and have access to whatever, but nobody read.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Because they weren't educated. They
That's
weren't
right.
taught how to read intentionally, and they were kept in the dark. And this was a very, very effective tool to be able to control the masses. And not only were they not taught to read whatever language it was of the region that they lived in, but the Bible was primarily in Latin. So even if you could read, the script of your time, it probably wasn't going to be Latin. So you still couldn't read it, right? And so it was up to the clergy to be able to read it because they were taught to read it and tell you what it meant. And, there's all kinds of ways that they can spin it, right?
Yeah. Especially when you have Aramaic that was then translated and written in Greek. A lot of it, not everything. And then so that's now. So you have the witnesses and you have the spoken word, right? And then that gets interpolated. Not interpreted, interpolated, right, into something, and then that gets written down, and then it gets transcribed and translated from Greek into another language, and in most cases,
and how much is
Latin
lost in every step of the process?
Lost in translation, right? So it's like the game of telephone.
Exactly.
So by the time we get to 325, 330 AD. And we're specifically talking about the Bible, we are a few generations removed. I'm not saying that most of it wasn't accurate. And what else do we have to go on than some of those firsthand accounts, the 3 or 4 books of the Bible? I'm no Bible expert. I don't even.
Yeah, and I'm not either. So let's
I'm not.
In the interest of full disclosure, be honest about that.
Yeah. So, but it's a document. The Bible itself is a document that has survived now, not quite 2,000 years, and it is interpreted and interpolated by the individuals that choose to read it and then speak about its meaning. Yeah. Right. And it's like how many versions. So, and that goes, it can go with just about any document that we have from ancient history. And like, I'm going to bring up the document that we have here tonight in just a second. And I'm going to, when I post it, everybody, I'll let Scott go through it and see what we're looking at. But when I look at this document and you go back to other ancient written languages, whether it's from the north and it's Ruin or it's Aramaic or Sumerian text, even Egyptian hieroglyphs, we couldn't read until the 1800s, right? And it was the Rosetta Stone. So until then, right? And now, how many languages, written languages, that were one-off languages that spun off of that nobody could read from another culture? You see what I'm saying? And that's what we're dealt today, is trying to go back and decode and decipher and translate languages that have disappeared in time. Right? It's a problematic. There's a lot of professionals out there that try to get a grip on it, but those professionals will also tell you, man, there's languages nobody can read, and we may never.
Dead languages.
Yeah. I've seen examples of different stuff, different scripts from different parts of the world, and you just look at that and you're like, well, that's going to stay the way it is forever. You
I
know,
can't help you with that one, pal. You're
no,
on your own.
no, and probably will never, you know, and the only reason why, you know, and this is what's crazy, and I know like Haley's over there. When I showed the document, you'll see some of the decoding processes that they use. She's over there working on decoding something that to me, like touring and you know, all of the code breakers, what were they, the wind talkers, right?
Oh, the wind talkers, I think it was. I can't remember.
What was
They
it?
were all indigenous people. Were they
Indigenous.
Lakota? Do you remember?
There were several different indigenous people.
Okay, a bunch of
Okay,
different from different
okay.
tribes. Yeah.
Okay, now keep Haley out of this show. I'm not going to do that tonight. And Haley's going to be on with us next month. Okay.
Oh,
When
okay,
Haley's
well-
on the show, you are in the other room with the door closed. You are not on Haley's show.
You shouldn't have told me that, pal.
Okay. All right. So, but that's what we're up against. Trying to decode something that
Yeah.
is nearly impossible.
Well, Jimmy, let me tell you something. This particular document that we're going to talk about and show tonight is one of at least 18. I got to go back and add it up, but I think we're up to 18 encrypted documents that we have got just from the Cremona document alone. And the crazy thing is every single one of them is different in some way. And including the one that we're working on right now, that's not, we're going to talk about tonight, but the one that we're going to hopefully have decoded here in the next couple days. That one, I swear, is probably the most complicated that we've had so far because it incorporates at least two different alphabets, one being Theban. I don't know what the hell to call the other one. I've only seen the symbols that are being used in this alphabet one other time, and it's got some of the same symbols. The rest of the alphabet is different symbols. So it's just it's a bitch to try to figure it out. The other thing that happens is sometimes they translate straight into English. Sometimes they translate into French. We've had Italian. We've had a couple of other languages, I know. And then, of course, you have to translate that into English. And like you said, when you go from, a coded message to one language to another language and maybe to a third language, what's lost in translation? And we keep that in mind as we go through this process. But I'll tell you what, it can be mind bending to say the least.
Yeah.
But we're getting them. We're getting them.
Well, one example would be, look what you and I are doing right now. Okay. So let's say that was written by somebody about you and I tonight. And they say, I this is just off the cuff, but everybody just go with me. It's how my mind works. So they say Scott and Jimmy were in a studio talking. Okay. All right. Now, does that mean because they weren't here to somebody in the future, they would assume you and I are in the same room? Right?
Yeah,
Talking.
we're in the same screen right now.
Right. So when you look at an ancient text that says something similar, we are assuming that two people are in the presence of each other. Or we can assume the opposite and that they were in different countries. It's how, you know what I mean? Because words have a different meaning in the context that they are being used, right? So when you look at these ancient documents, you need to really take everything one step further and go 3D and look at the true meaning of what is being said, and don't look at it directly. And you can apply that to anything. Look at what you remember Columbus and his journals, right?
I call him Chris.
Okay, Crit. Well, yeah. I mean, you're in the know. You're in the circle. But here's the thing.
He's my guy.
Any one of those, I use him as an example, but you could take any ship's log, from the 1500s and read through there and see some pretty fantastical stuff, because we are using the words in context of the way we use them today. Right? Makes sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So this first document, before I pull it up, what is it? And do we have a date? Let's go there first.
I should probably just give a quick little background on what the Cremona document is, and who's involved and how long we've been working on this and all that. So starting back in, for me, this thing started back in 2006 when I was at a NERA conference on the East Coast, New England Antiquities Research Association. And I met a guy by the name of Don Rue, this big, tall, 6'8" guy that I was introduced to by a woman named Zena Halpern. And for those that are fans of the Curse of Oak Island show, she's been the darling on that show for several years. Now, sadly, Zena died about, I think, 2016, something like that. And but she was 88 years old. She had breast cancer. She beat it many years ago, and then it came back and sadly took her. Anyway, she was the one that introduced me to this guy, and he wanted me to look at an inscribed stone that he found up in the Catskill Mountains, and I did some work for him, and I wrote a report, and then he and I became friends. In 2008, he came into some information that his best friend and colleague that he worked with for basically the length of their careers, who had passed away in 2000, had left him some documents that he had purchased back in 1971 in Rome. These were the Templar documents that Don and I have named the Cremona document. The reason we call it the Cremona document is because the document spent some time in a monastery, Cistercian monastery in Cremona, Italy. Any case, that led Don and I to work together. We ended up going up into the Adirondack Mountains, and we found the remnants of an old temple that was referenced in the documents that Don had basically been bequeathed from his deceased friend. Over the course of the next several years, there were more documents that Don found within the materials that his friend had left him. His friend, actually his son, had signed an agreement giving everything to Don, the rights to everything. And then later on, Don and I signed an agreement, and that agreement is in effect to this day. We're working together. We've published one book together already. Don has published his own book, and I published a few of my own books that involve the documents that have come forward over the years. Now, we have been getting various documents that Bill Jackson is the name of Don's best friend and the guy that passed away in 2000. When Bill died, he bequeathed, or he gave a bunch of these documents to his colleagues within this agency that they all worked for, with strict instructions upon their deaths that this material was to go to Don Rue. Now, people might say, why didn't he just give it to Don from the get-go? Well, when you have been working on this as long as I have, since 2008, with Don, you'll understand the sensitivity of this material and why Bill didn't just give it to him. He wanted it to go through outside sources, and it's a long story. But anyway, that's how these things came to us. Bill Jackson actually sold some of the documents to the Vatican. Now, you got to remember, these documents are Knights Templar documents that the content goes back to before the put down. The oldest, even way before that, the oldest reference that we have in this material talks about a voyage that started in the British Isles that eventually came over to North America in 1177, and they returned in 1180. Their mission was to go to North America, to this temple that Don and I have been to, and recover scrolls, biblical era scrolls and older, that had been hidden in North America. long before.
Let me jump in here really quick. Scott and I have done many shows over the years on this subject in complete detail, down to okay. So if you go back and you want to do a deep dive, go and check out Scott and I's broadcasts that we have done together over the years. There's many of them, and we've also done a few on Coast to Coast too as well. Talking about this stuff. So back to this. So the Cremona, in a nutshell, if you were going to describe what the Cremona documents are, just very briefly for the audience, how would you just put that in one sentence? What are the Cremona documents?
The Cremona document basically is essentially a chronological history of the activities of the Knights Templar from their founding, which was in the early part of the 12th century, and the similar tradition that they came from, the people, the groups that predated the Templars that were basically the same ideologically, that go all the way back to Jesus and Mary Magdalene, because the Templar leadership are the ideological and biological descendants of the royal family from the first century. And this document tonight that came to us about a week ago, a little over a week ago, goes to the heart of really this story of the Cremona document, of the tradition that created it, and their ancestors going back to the royal family.
Now, and this particular page that we're going to look at tonight, this came from the Don Rue Cache and Circle of Friends as part of that stash.
Yes, and I'll just tell you briefly because it's kind of interesting.
Well, hold on. All right. Okay. Yeah, no, you can. How much?
I don't think how much. This part.
How many more pages like this are in that stash that are still to be revealed? Are there many? I would have thought by now you guys have gone through everything. There's still more.
Well, that's a great question. And I have to say, over the last 5 years or so, I thought that we were at the end. But
Haley's sitting next to you. She just perked up. Haley's sitting next to you working on no Haley.
Sorry. Anyway, I know. I don't want something good looking to make me look like trash here. So
she knows.
Sorry, folks, you're stuck with me.
She knows I love her, and I went through that fish and chips restaurant. I did that. I was there. Are you going to bring
that story up? Are you going to tell that story?
I will. Okay. So anyway, now she's over there working on another document.
Yeah.
Right? Well, so how many more
kind of came together? This document. Okay, let me just say where this came from. About almost 2.5 years ago, Don and I went on a trek into the woods, and we were looking for a cache, and we found it. There were coins, there were crosses, there were other artifacts. It was fucking amazing. And we were hiking back out, and we crossed this river, and Don's 82 now. He was 80 at the time. And he said, I got to take a break, and he's got he's 6'8". And so we sit down and we're kind of just talking. And I looked at him and I said, Don, is this it? Is there going to be any more, or is there anyone left in the agency that might pass away and leave you more stuff? He said, no. He said, McMasters is still living, but he and Bill didn't get along. He wouldn't have left him anything. And so I looked at him and I was dead serious. And I said, so we might be done. And you got to understand, this has been going on since 2008. And, but it's been an amazing ride. And I haven't told the world most of the best stuff yet, but I'm going to. Any case, we sat there.
I've been waiting 10 years for that. Don't ever say those words again. ever
I'm just,
on this
it's the
show
truth,
or
buddy.
anywhere else.
Hey,
Not in
I'm not
public.
lying
Don't
to you.
don't do
I'm
it in
telling
public.
you the truth, and you
Well,
can
you know
handle
what?
the truth.
What we're going to be, I can. We're going to be at the Contact Modalities Expo, right? Del event.
Yeah,
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. You say that on stage, I'm walking right up there. I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to go, no, yeah.
We're going to have a slap fight on stage. It's going to be amazing. I love it.
I'm done with it. Okay. So,
okay, now let me finish the story now. This is good. So
but you didn't answer my question. Then I'll let you finish with Don Rue.
Okay, what's the question?
What is the date? I asked about the date of this document. Do you have a date for this document?
Okay, hold that thought, and I'll tell you.
Wait a minute. I asked that 10 minutes ago.
Okay, all right. So
what's the date? I want to know the date.
Okay, so let me explain, and you'll understand. In one of the documents that we got a few years ago, it told us the history of the documents. And what happened is in 1304, this is 3 years before the put down when the Templars were suppressed on Friday the 13th. The Templars started to document everything that they had done up to that time. Their records, their maps, their letters, their everything were updated about every 150 years. Okay. The last update was done in 1908. So the document that you're looking at here, this is not an original. This is a copy. This is just a paper copy. But this document was copied down in 1908. But the information contained in it, as you will see when we read them, the message clearly is a hell of a lot older. But this is not a document that goes back to the 1300s. It certainly doesn't go back to biblical times. This thing, the original of this is about 18 years old.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So back to Don and is this
Don and I are sitting in the woods next to this little creek. And I asked him if there's anything else coming. He said, I don't think so. I think we're done. And we sat there and I'm kind of just processing it. And then he looks at me and he goes, and I turned and I looked at him and he said, Bill had a girlfriend. I went, oh. And long story short, we tracked not her down. She passed away 2 years prior, but her cousin, she gave all this material to her cousin. And so over the course of the last couple of years, Roberta has been giving this stuff to us. Now it gets more complicated because a year ago in August, Roberta died. She had a stroke and she passed away. The person that actually was the intermediary was a friend of Don's that went to college with Roberta. And her name is Jessica. That's all I can tell you. She is the one that went down to North Carolina, where they all went to high school and where these documents were, and got that material and has passed this material to Don. And so this document we got from her a couple of weeks ago, and the one that Haley's working on now came to us I got it on Monday. That's why we're working on it right now. But this one is a bitch. It is really, really tough. And, but we're going to get it.
Now, I'm the only one that can use bad language on this show.
Bad language?
Yeah, just so you know. Okay, so here we go.
Sorry. I think people can handle it.
Yeah, they can. Here's the document. Okay, so this is a copy of it. I want everybody to notice a couple of things, and then I'm going to have Scott go through this. I'll do the message next, but in fact, we're going to spend the rest of this part, this segment, just on this image. When we come back, Scott, don't give anything away. It's called a teaser. When we come back, I've got the decoded stuff, and we'll go through that. But
hey, Jimmy, let me interrupt for a second. I want to do something. You remember how we do that? We have this tradition where you ask the questions and I answer them, but every now and then I flip the script.
Yeah, and ask me a question that I can't answer.
I'm going to flip the script on you right now, and I'm going to ask you a question that you may not be able to answer, but this is a quiz for, the great Jimmy Church.
Right.
Are there symbols in here that you recognize? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, there's a lot of penises in here. And
wait a minute, I thought you couldn't say
there
stuff
are.
like that.
It's
What kind of a show is
obviously
this?
there's a lot of penis in this. Look, do I need to Haley's like, yeah. Yep, still a penis.
Yep.
Do I need to go get some vodka? Because I'll go get some vodka and a shot glass. I'm surprised we didn't start with a deck of cards tonight too, as well.
No, but we'll be playing cards soon enough.
Well, I can't wait for that.
I know, I love it. Jimmy,
so,
seriously now.
Yes.
Take a look at some of these symbols. There is one there's a couple here that are pretty easy.
Wait. Okay, let's get back to organization here. What I want everybody, hold on, because this is important.
All right.
I want everybody to notice that there are 9 lines here. This is a copy. This isn't the original, and they're numbered by Scott on the left.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
That's not the original.
That's not the original.
That was done by us.
As we go through the description and we say, line 7 or line 4 or line, now you understand that to the left, it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9 lines in this particular document. Yes. And there's, what I love about this, and I'm not, was it Wind Talkers? What were they called?
I think they were called Wind Talkers. That might be right. If anybody knows, call Jimmy and correct us.
Right. I'm not any type of cryptographer, but one thing is, and Scott, you and I have talked about this so many times, what you want to see is a repeat of symbols. You want to see a repeat. You don't want to see something that doesn't repeat itself. If it doesn't repeat itself, that's it.
It's hopeless.
It's hopeless. So with this, there is a lot of repeating things that are going on.
So what does that tell you?
That it's a language. It's an alphabet.
It's an alphabet. Exactly.
It's an alphabet. Yes. Yeah.
So,
I answered a Scott Wolter question. I think that's the first time in the history.
I got a straight answer out of you.
Well, no, you got an answer at all, because you always ask me questions that I can't answer. You know this. Okay. Scott, what is this document?
Okay. So, first off, if you look at line 2, the second character, that is a symbol. That's an astrological symbol for Sagittarius.
Oh,
and if for those people that are versed in astrological symbols, you will look at this and go, well, wait a minute. I only see maybe 1 or 2 others. The 69 laying sideways, that would be the symbol for Cancer. Mm-hmm. And the other ones are not quite right when it comes to astrological symbols. They're, if we go to line 2 and go over about 15 symbols, you see 3 circles with crosses below, and then the 2 on the outside have horns.
Yep.
Those look like Taurus, the symbol for Taurus, but Taurus doesn't have the cross on the bottom. So these are modified astrological symbols. The Virgo symbol is modified there, the M instead of a fish symbol on the right.
Libra's, I see Libra here.
Yep.
Omega is here.
Right. So we do have some astrological symbols, but then we have some other things that are astrological like. But the bottom line is we do have an alphabet. If you look at line 4, after the third character, there is a period. So there's a couple of punctuations here. So we have a message here, and this one was tough. We did have some previous messages that incorporated astrological symbols. They were somewhat helpful. And then, of course, when you're decoding these things, one of the things that happens is, even if you don't get the whole alphabet, If you get enough of the alphabet and you start to put together the message, you will have a word with maybe a symbol or two that you can't make out, but you can make out what the word looks like it is. So then you can just by deduction figure out what the letter should be. And then you put it in there. If it makes a logical letter, now you've got the meaning of that symbol that you didn't know. You try it out in the rest of the message and you find out pretty quick if it's right. And if it is, you just do that process. And the ones that you can't get, a lot of times just by simple deduction, you can figure it out, even if you don't know what the symbol means. By putting it within a word, you can figure out what the letter is. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And no hooked X's, by the way.
Not in this message, but in the one Haley's working on, there's two.
Okay. Now, there's one symbol here that is all over the place, and it's the one that appears to be an extended cursive M. It's the first symbol in line 4, the third symbol in line 8, the third symbol in line 6.
Yeah.
The sixth symbol in line 2.
Well, that's actually an M with an R on the far.
That's what it looks like. It looks like Mr.
Yeah, it does. Actually, what it reminds me of is the symbol for Virgo, which is Scorpio.
No, Haley,
No.
Haley, you're in a timeout. You're in a timeout,
You're in a
Haley.
timeout. You want me to come onto your show? Okay. She just goes, no, I don't want that. Okay.
Exactly.
No, it reminds me of the Virgo symbol, which is an M like that, but it has a fish symbol, and that's not a fish symbol. Scorpio has an M with an arrow going to the right, and that's not what that is either. So it's sort of almost a cross between the two. But like I said, some of them are astrological like symbols. They're not the correct symbol.
Yeah, it's weird. And like I said, there's a lot of astrological symbology going on here.
Yes.
Are all 12 constellations here?
No, they're not. I think you can make the argument, like, for example, Libra, which is basically a V that's upside down that has curls at the bottom. If you look at it almost looks like an omega symbol, line 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8th symbol on line 8 looks like an omega symbol. And it's very close to Libra, but it's not.
Okay, what? Hold on for a second. I'm just gonna do something. Okay, all right. Do
you want me to give you a clue as to how we were able to decode this?
Let's do that too as well. But
before we show the message, I want to tell you.
We're not going to do the message till after the break.
Right.
It looks like, okay, and we'll see the message when we come back. It looks to me, and I noticed this is the second I laid my eyes on it, that there are 3 breaks in this paragraph that look to be sentence or periods, sentence conclusions. Am I reading that correctly? Are there 3 periods here?
Well, you got one at the very end. It's kind of smudged a little bit.
Yep.
There's one on line 4, after the third character, and there's one on line 2. If you about 2/3 of the way, there's that S-looking character, backwards S, and then there's a period there. And so, I think those are the breaks. There are three sentences here. Yeah, there's 3 sentences.
Okay, so how do you approach this?
All right. Well, normally, we would go back. We would start by going back and look at, the messages that we have decoded in the past. We always come up with an alphabet, and then once we get the alphabet, then the message starts to fall into place. This one is a simple 1-to-1 substitution with the symbol and a letter, but we've never seen all these symbols before, so it was Like, okay, God damn it. Now we got to start from scratch. Now, the other thing you'll notice here, this was the key. The first letter on line 1 looks like a what?
A Y, a hooked
It
Y.
does. It turns out that is what that letter is. Now, there are 3 Y's in this message. If you look on line 6, towards the end, you'll see one. You see that one?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And on line 8, right in the middle.
Yep.
In all 3 cases, it stands for Y. So
Interesting.
we didn't know that at the time, but we just started with Y, and we looked at that very first word on line 1. And if we just assume that that is a Y, because that's what we did, what word? And again, you have to understand, we've been working on this material for a long time. We know the subject matter that we're dealing with. What word would come to mind that starts with a Y that would be related to Templar-based material?
Utes.
Try
I'm
again.
kidding. What do you mean? What do you mean? Why? Why?
I guessed right off the bat, and I was right. Yeshua.
Okay. Oh, well, of course.
And who's Yeshua?
Yeah, but you think that's Templar?
What did I say just a little while ago? The Templars are the ideological and biological descendants of who?
Right.
Jesus,
the baby,
Mary Magdalene.
the baby Jesus. But okay, I wouldn't make that connection. Not me.
Well,
but you,
yeah, you might not, but you don't have.
I mean, not Yeshua. Yeshua to me, you're going back to the Old Testament, and that's like Noah and Moses stuff to me.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
not a scholar, so.
Well, Yeshua is how it's pronounced, is actually Jesus's real name.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Man, don't get me in trouble with all those Christian, what do they call apologists?
Fundamentalists. Look, the fundamentalists are going to get upset, but they're more fascinated by this than anyone. And when they hear this message, their heads are going to start spinning like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. But all I can tell you is this is what we're going to show is what the message says. Now, we guessed, and what we did was now we've got 6 letters, right? We've got the Y, we got the E, we got the S, we got the H, we got the U, and we got the A. So now we've got a good chunk of our alphabet, and you can start plugging those letters in right away because a bunch of those appear in the rest of the message.
If it was written in code, a coded version of English.
Yes, this is English. That's right.
Okay.
It's a coded message, but it's in English.
It's in English.
Yes.
Now, what's the symbol? The first symbol in row 5.
Row 5. That's actually an astrological symbol for. This is one of the 2. I'm sorry. I gotta ask this one here. You remember that one? Aquarius.
Oh, that's Aquarius.
That's so Aquarius.
I've got all the math symbol charts up right now, and I didn't know if that was like an equal or equivalent or.
But it's got the little mound in the middle.
Yeah. So it's not. I thought it was a math symbol, and you know what? I'm going to get these math charts off of my screen because I was comparing some of these symbols to math and Greek, and it's similar but not
the same.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So
Wow.
So now you get a taste of how we did this particular one, and we really got lucky. But again, because of the subject matter that we've been dealing with for all these years is the same. The messages all have some connection to the same subject matter, the Templars, the first century royal family, and that history. It may sound like, oh my God, Scott, how did you do that? Well, it wasn't all genius, that's for sure. We've been dealing with this subject matter, so we stayed with it, and Yeshua seemed to make sense, and that's what got us started. And as you can see, look at all the circles with dots; those are A's. You look at the circle with the arrow, that's an H, and you almost got half the letters right there in that first word.
Yeah, this is let's see, two. Let me go back to this. Okay, so yeah, okay. Couple of interesting things. Yes, so the Mr. sign certainly appears to be a twist of Virgo, right?
Yeah.
And
by the way, that symbol that we were talking about, Jimmy, excuse me for interrupting, on line 5, that's actually a combination of Aquarius and Libra.
Aquarius and Libra. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a stretched out version of Libra. And then when you look at Aquarius, it could be that. But also the Virgo could also be Scorpio in a couple of these other spots.
Right. And like I said,
in line 4, it's almost 2 symbols. I'm assuming it's 1, but the first version of, and then Taurus is bastardized here 3 different ways. Yeah. In
3 different ways. Yeah, right. So that's why I said these are astrological like. Now, if you go all the way to line 5 towards the end, the 4th character from the end looks like, 2 Roman numeral or 2 capital I's. Below that, you have an H symbol. The symbol for Gemini would be, you just add another bar in the middle with those curved outside arms or legs, and then rotate it 90 degrees, and that's Gemini.
Pisces. Well, it's a bastardized version of Pisces too, as well. It's weird. Yeah, and also, the penis symbol, that could almost be Sagittarius, but not quite right. I don't know.
Well, the arrow with that is Sagittarius. It's just going down to the lower right. Typically, Sagittarius is going up to the upper right. So,
I'm talking about the penis symbol. Penis.
Oh, you mean the circle with the arrow going to the right?
Yep.
The semi-erect penis?
Yep.
Gotcha. I'm following your lead, pal, and you're leading me into some dangerous territory here. So I got to watch it. You're terrible. You do this to me all the time.
But Haley's over there going, yeah, Jimmy's right. Yeah. I saw that.
You're bringing her in now. I'm trying to keep her over here, but you keep bringing her in. Stop that now.
Yeah, and so why would Sagittarius be incorrectly represented here?
Well, I think it's just to, confuse the person that is not supposed to decode it, right?
Because it's not Sagittarius. It's a code, and that's the symbol that they used in the code.
Exactly.
Has nothing to do with Sagittarius.
Well, it may or may not. I mean,
or may not, but you understand what I'm saying. As any of these symbols here.
No, I get it.
Okay, so Scott, with that, let's take our break. Let's get this in. Our guest tonight is Scott Wolter, and let me pull this down. Oh, I already pulled Scott out. Scott, I'm sorry about that. You're just going to have to live with it. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice,
That's
right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Let's try this again. What's going on? Oh, it's this. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Scott Wolter is with us. I want to remind everybody, the next 4, I haven't checked yet, but the next 4 Game Changer memberships will get Fade to Black coffee from River Moon. All right. And I'm going to sign each one of these in gold. So after you're done, you pour this in your thing, you get it done, and it's whole bean, and you grind it. You can keep the, I'll sign it. You can frame it. Yeah. Put it in the bottom of your bird cage. You can do any of that. But the next 4 Game Changer memberships through tomorrow night. Now, as promised, I've gone through my book collection. I've got a couple of other very, very special things that I'm going to be dropping in randomly each night with Game Changers. And some of them are very, very cool. Yeah. Got a couple of watches. What in the box? Yeah. I got some really cool things that, It's about, maybe it's my age, maybe it's hanging out with my daughter, my friends, what we're going through right now in Los Angeles or whatever it is. Man, you can't take this stuff with you. And it could, let somebody else enjoy it. All right. Including Fade to Black blend. Okay. All right. So I'll be doing that until, well, I'll never run out of stuff. But all right. So the next 4 game changers, Fade to Black blend coffee. And then if there's more than that by the end of tomorrow night, I've got some really cool books, as you can imagine. I've got a lot of those. All right. Tonight, Scott Wolter is on with us. He's got some new Templar documents. And so we've got the first document. We're going to be doing some other shows. Plus, Haley's going to be on with us in a couple of weeks. So we will continue this. But the first document is here. There it is. And we've gone through the symbology and what Scott and Haley have been doing to decode this. I want to let everybody know, Scott, just a little recap. Scott says that this document is around 118 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, let's do, yeah.
Well, hold on, Scott. It's my recap. Scott always thinks this is his show, that he can come on and just, no, Scott, you forget it's Fade to Black. When you start your podcast, Scott, you start, yeah. You start your podcast and I come on, you can cut me off. You can do whatever you want. It's your show. Anyway, so on the left, the rows of the coded message are numbered lines 1 through 9. Now that you have looked at this document enough, and some of you have freeze framed this and done screen grabs, that's fantastic. You can look and see the repetition of what is going on here. I did go through, I went straight to Greek. I could see the astrological stuff, but I started to look at Greek and look at math symbols and physics symbols, just wondering where the head was that put this message together. So with that, Scott, is there anything you want to add before we bring up the decoded page?
I'm just trying to think. I don't think so. It was 117 years in the past when this was done. And, I don't know if we want to go into it at all, but we think we know who the person was that.
Well, of course, that's my next question. Who wrote it?
Hold on.
Oh man, we're gonna do. Is this what we're gonna? Who wrote it?
So the guy that recopied these in 1908. Turns out we don't know what his total ethnology was, but we do know that he was married to an indigenous woman. He actually went by 2 names. His white name, I guess you would say, was Clyphus Lucinius Jarbo, the last name spelled with the Y. So on many of the maps that he drew, he signed his in the upper corner with his sigla. And a sigla is basically his initials that are combined into a single symbol. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's a sigla. But we also know from the documents that was not his real name. And if you stop and think about it, he actually was part of a familial line that was a Templar map maker, cryptographer, if you will, the one that would encode these messages, would draw the maps, and they always used a synonym or a code name because using their real name would have been extremely dangerous, because if you are a map maker or a person who did the coded messages for the Knights Templar, you would probably be of interest to certain groups like, I don't know, maybe the Roman Catholic Church. So it literally was a matter of life and death. if this was the job that you had. So if you had that job, you're not going to be using your real name. Now, so we know his code name was Clyphus Lucinius Yarbo, or CLY, as we call him. We also know from the messages that he was married to an indigenous woman, and he also had a Mohawk name. His Mohawk name was Talico, which means gray eagle. So, and this is really interesting. Some people would say, well, why would he marry an indigenous woman? And, he's a Templar at the same time. Actually, this makes perfect sense, because the Templars, when they came over starting in the early 12th century, bonded with the indigenous people on a deep spiritual level through ritual and intermarriage. And this continued on for generations and generations. I could tell you all kinds of stories another night about people that we know historically that were descendants of Knights Templar indigenous marriages. I'll give you one that everybody knows. You ever heard of a woman named Sacagawea?
No.
Sacagawea, the woman that traveled with Lewis and Clark and saved their lives?
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
Well, it wasn't a coincidence that they stayed with the Mandan up in North Dakota that first winter before they left on that trip in 1803, and they met Sacagawea and her husband Charbonneau that winter. Okay, now they were
Lewis and Clark were Freemasons, right?
Actually, they were both Freemasons, but at the time, only Meriwether Lewis was a Freemason. Clark was not a Mason when they were on the Corps of Exploration, but after he got back, he became a Mason. So yes, they were, but not at that time.
What do you call the apron?
A Masonic apron.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called a lambskin. It's made out of lambskin, and every Mason, when they're raised, gets one. It's a pure white lambskin.
There's not a secret coded name for it. It's just called an apron.
Well, if it's a secret coded name, I can't tell you because you're not a brother. So why don't you get off the schneid and take the oath and become a brother and get your life together? What the hell?
I'm not a Mason. Can you imagine if it disclosed that I became a Mason? Could you imagine oh my God. Could you imagine? Oh, jeez.
What the hell is the problem? What would be the problem?
Oh, the problem's not with me. The problem is with the deep, dark recesses of social media.
Are you buying all that conspiracy stuff? Stop it.
No, I don't. But people love it. They love a good story. I don't.
Well,
you know what though? It doesn't even have to be a Mason. Okay, it's different with me. Let's say I decide to get a greyhound puppy. Okay,
a greyhound
puppy, and I post a picture. That's it. I knew it. He's a shill. He's got a greyhound puppy. And do you know what that symbolism is? Man, look up greyhounds. Do you understand? It's just like, dude, just stop. Yeah. So
Jimmy,
no, I don't need
it. You can become a Mason and we don't have to tell anybody. We are pretty good at keeping secrets. I mean, if we need to. Now, it would be awful hard for me to keep that secret, but I would do it. Now, Haley might, she might give up the ghost on you.
Can I wear my Facebook video glasses to the ceremony?
You can do whatever you want, brother. You can do whatever you want.
I can tape everything.
Look at we got plenty of brothers that are doing silly stuff. Look at me, my God. I come on these crazy radio shows, these podcasts, and talk nonsense. I mean, they haven't kicked me out yet.
It's a good thing you never gave me that ring that you promised me. If you think about it, it's everybody. Scott never gave me the Mason ring. I asked for it. I've never gotten it, but
you got to take the oath. You got to take the oath, pal, until you do no ring. And you know what? One of these days, maybe.
Oh man, you got that from Amazon. I've seen that.
I didn't.
Anyway,
no, I didn't. I bought it for 20. Actually, Haley bought it for me.
Can you imagine
Portugal for $25?
Me on stage, holding a microphone, you know, with all my rings that I wear and all my jewelry, right? And I got
Yeah.
a Mason ring on, dude. That's it. It would be over.
It'd be over
Oh
for
my
you.
God, they would just lose their minds.
No,
Yeah,
stop
they
it.
would.
People would love it. They'd take you more seriously, and you'd get more girlfriends. And look, your whole life would change. Why did
Yeah,
I
it
say
would
that?
change all
Did I
right.
say that?
It would change all right. Oh man, I remember, what's that guy's name from Blink 182?
I don't know. Is that a band?
The guitar player. Yeah.
You got me.
Tom DeLonge.
Oh yeah, that's
So
him.
yeah, Tom DeLonge. So he's got a guitar with the Freemason sticker on it, right?
He's a brother then. Hey, you know the
Is
rhythm
he?
guitar player for Leonard
I thought-
Skinner is a brother?
Well, I thought he just put it on there because it was cool.
No, you don't do that kind of stuff. If you put a Masonic symbol out there and you're not a brother, you're a dork. But if you're a brother, you're going to put it on there. And I would bet anything that
Okay,
he's a brother.
so I have a guitar with the alien sticker on it. Does that
mean
I'm
you're an alien?
Yeah. Does that mean I'm an alien? I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked. I'll tell you that.
I've got another guitar. Oh, I don't know if you can see it.
See,
Oh, you can't. But that guitar right there, right? You can see the bottom.
yeah,
There's another row.
it's right there. It's up there.
Yeah,
See
there's
my
another
finger out of
row.
frame? Nice
Yeah,
job.
yeah. There's another row. You know, see what people don't realize. There's another row of guitars
Above.
that goes. You know, it's like 40 feet. You know, it goes.
We can
all the
just
way.
catch the bottoms, the very bottom of those guitars. We can see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, that one says 5150, and you know what 5150 means?
That'd be 101.
That's the police code for crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're pulling
Now
up to
you're
the
revealing-
house. Yeah, pulling up to the house. Resident is 5150. That's what that means. Yeah.
Well, now
yeah.
you're
Okay.
revealing secrets. This is fun. Let's keep going. Now, do we
Okay,
want to
so-
at some point tell people what the message says?
I have it right here. Let's
Okay.
pull it up.
Okay, now seriously, before you pull it up, Jimmy, before you do it, hold it. I'm covering it up. Okay. We got to just take a step back. Okay. We've been having fun. We've been goofing off or having a beer. But in all seriousness, okay, this message is not kidding around. And I want to make sure that the people that are listening, and this, I'm sorry to just do a 180 here, but we have to do it.
Okay.
The message here is in no way intended to be offensive. What I'm going to talk about, if we get to that point, is my interpretation of this message, but it is in no way intended to offend anybody, because when you see what it says, there are some people that this will poke their sensitivities. And I just want to make sure that people are prepped for this, that we are not playing games here. We're being serious, and we are definitely not trying to offend anybody. Okay. Is that fair?
That's fair. And that the message was God said, eat Oreo cookies, right? You've offended half of the planet. It doesn't matter. You know, the message is the message. People are going to, okay. So
let's do it.
I'm going to bring up the first half of your notes here though.
Okay. This is a good idea. So on the bottom here, well, there's Yeshua, right? And that was the first word that we were able to figure out, and we took a shot at it, and we got lucky, and it was right. So now you've got these letters, and you look there. I wrote out the alphabet. I put the corresponding symbol once we were done, and there you can see what the alphabet is. There are some other letters we don't have symbols for because they aren't used in the message.
Like K and X is not used, and Z.
Yep. And Z and V.
Now, up in the upper right-hand corner, you wrote, knowing Simon, is that Parker?
Peter.
Simon Peter denied Jesus 3 times during trial.
Yes.
Okay.
So these notes don't make sense until you understand the message, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's just go through it. Now I wrote
And
this
that-
fast. My handwriting is bad, but to tell you the truth, I was really excited when I was writing this stuff. I was looking to the left and I'm writing it the same. So it's a mess, but you can still read it, I think.
Paul, formerly known as Saul of Tarsus, was a Roman Jew and apostle. So those are your notes, and
Those are
then
my notes. Those are my
Yes,
notes for me.
Those are your
For me.
notes. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So now let's get to the message itself, which is here. Okay.
Jimmy, why don't you do it in your Jimmy Church voice? And seriously, read this. I want you to read it. I'm not going to read it. I want Jimmy Church to read this in the Jimmy Church voice.
Okay. And lightning will strike the studio, and if things go dark, you know why. Okay, here we go. Yeshua wanted a dual gendered God religion. Simon and the Roman Jew sold him out. He, his wife, children preached in the Northland and of Scots, but only the temple of the goddesses and the Kohan.
Yep. The Kohen, that's one of the 12 tribes.
Okay, Kohan and my people Lee. What's the
Listen.
last word?
Listened. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
So let me repeat the I'm going to repeat the last line.
And it's goddess.
Goddess, not goddesses.
Yeah. So when you see the in parentheses, the message doesn't have an H, so I'm adding the H because temple of Goddess. The word obviously is the. We're missing an H. We're missing an S at the end of goddess, and we have an extra T in Scots. Now,
that's very, very, very interesting, and that's a mistake. And you know what's funny? If this appears somewhere else, and the two T's are there, then you know where somebody ripped you off, right? Right,
well,
right.
But
the
all
mistake
documents
have
different
is
spelling. Scots is okay because for example, the name Sinclair. When you go back and look at historical documents, I've seen at least a dozen different ways that the last name Sinclair can be spelled, and they're all right. They're all right.
For sure.
So this looks like it's wrong, but it's actually not. It's okay.
Okay, so let me read the second line correctly. And now you know about the periods, by the way. Okay. He, his wife, children preached in the Northland and of Scots, but only the temple of the goddess and the Cohen and my people listened.
Yes.
Dude, that's
okay. Remember I said this is
heavy stuff.
This is heavy stuff. Now, I don't know where you want to start, but I will tell you that for me, and actually for Haley, this is as profound as it gets for our past research. Now, I don't want to go on a long tangent, but Jimmy, you know full well, I wrote a book called The Hooked X. I studied an artifact called the Kensington Runestone that has a enigmatic, controversial symbol on it called the Hooked X. Way back in 2002, I came up with an interpretation of that symbol that the scholars said this symbol never existed. It's a mistake. And that's one of the main reasons why the Kensington Runestone is a fake. No, that is wrong. This symbol is a Templar symbol, and it has a dual meaning. The first meaning is that it is used on the Kensington Runestone for the letter A. Okay. The first letter in our alphabet and the first letter sound in the Hebrew alphabet. The first letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the Aleph. If you look at the Aleph and you look at the Hooked X, to me, and actually, you know who it was that said this the first time? I'm going to pull a name out, and I know you know this person. Do you remember a guy by the name of Ian Punnett?
Of course.
Okay. I was a guest on Coast to Coast when he was hosting a show. This is probably 20 years ago. Before I did the show, I had a lecture at the University of Minnesota, and there was a guy sitting in the back wearing glasses, a short guy, and he didn't say anything. And when I started talking about the hooked X, he raised his hand and he goes, could that be the symbol, the olive symbol? And all of a sudden I went, oh my God. I said, dude.
Well, he was a religious scholar. That's the other thing.
He was the guy. It was him. Yeah. And then,
you told me this story before. I've known Ian.
I want to give him credit. I want to give him credit, because Ian passed away last year, right?
Yeah.
And he was a really good guy, and he was a brilliant guy. But he was the one that turned me on to this.
Yeah, I worked with him forever. I major respect for him, but when it came to religion, and look, for me, Scott, it's hard for me to have a discussion with somebody that knows religion, that studies it, because I don't. Yeah. I'm intrigued by it. I'm interested. I love the story. Yes, okay, I get. But am I some intellect that knows? No, I cannot get in the ring and start swinging with somebody that knows what they're talking about. I'm not. But Ian is one of those guys.
Jimmy, neither am I. But he knew what he was doing. So I always want to give him credit for that, because at the end of the day, I had already said that the hooked X symbol represents the true ideology of the Templars and their ancestors, which includes Jesus, aka Yeshua, right? And I said that the hooked X represents their belief in a single God that has dualistic aspects, male and female, on an equal level. And I took tons of, pardon my French, but I'm going to say it, shit from people for saying that. And, that was heretical and you can't say that. I'm saying, I don't care. That's what it means. Now, to see this here, Yeshua wanted a dual gendered God religion. When I read that, I nearly filled my pants. I could not believe it.
I did too.
In a way, Jimmy, listen, in a way, this is validation for me. For 25 years later, when the runestone first came into my life, and 23 years after I put my ass on the line and I said something that was heretical, and a document like this is basically saying you were right the whole time. And that is really, really, really gratifying. Now, I've known this in my heart for a long time, but to see it validated like this in this encrypted message that comes from these documents. And here's something I want to say to the skeptics real quick. If you're watching a show like The Curse of Oak Island, Xena gave them 2 of our maps that came from the Cremona document. They have been using those for 12 seasons on that show. They absolutely, and all the experts that have come on that show say those documents are legitimate. And my point is, if they're legitimate, then everything else is legitimate, because it all came from the same source. So that means that you're going to have a hard time arguing that this statement right here is not legitimate. And frankly, I know it's legitimate. And I also know how controversial this is going to be for a lot of people that are going, what?
But I'm you can interpret it so many different ways. But if the documents are legit, then the brothers are on the wrong island.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
The treasure is gone because our documents tell us they're gone. They don't have those documents. But I published a book in 2024, and I presented what I was comfortable. I redacted material I didn't want them to use on the show and give them free content, millions of dollars. But the treasure's gone. It was gone 150 years ago.
It was not an island. But anyway, okay, let's pick this apart if we may, because you just mentioned the first sentence, and now it grabs you, but you can read this many different ways. So when you take this line, I'm going to throw one idea out there. If you take it literally, Yeshua wanted a dual gendered God religion. You know what that says to me? two gods, one male and one female. That's what that says. Now, other people are going to read into that and go, no, it's equality. It's men and women, both represented the same. No, well, yeah. I mean, we can go on and on about this, but when I read that, that's what I see. Maybe there's two gods. Maybe
Jimmy,
there's a male and a female god.
I love what you're saying. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I look at it slightly different, but that's the beauty of this thing is everybody that reads this is going to interpret it slightly differently.
See,
and,
right here,
and
I read it. I read it that way too, Jimmy.
And that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And let me and Jimmy, you know this because you've heard me lecture about other documents that we have, specifically the Book of the Wars of the Lord. And one of the things that we see in one section of that document is it says that the ancient Hebrew word for God, Yahweh, is actually two words, Yah and Way. And the secret word of God in the Hebrew priesthood, which we can now say, because it's now been revealed and published, was you take the word Yahweh, you split it in half, and you pronounce it inside out, and it's pronounced Huhi. And a strict interpretation of that would be one is male, one is female. There's clearly a separation of the male and the female, which would support your position. So you could be right, Jim. You could be right.
Well, look, Monica says Jimmy is a genius.
Now, wait a minute. Let's not get carried away, Monica. He's a nice boy. We like him a lot, but let's not get carried away. All right?
The vote is in. The vote is in. So, but that's, if you just now, going back to the beginning of the show, and what I was trying to get into everybody's head, I want everybody to understand the way words are used, they are used in context of a situation, right? So, and the way something is pronounced, and we can go on and on and on. It's not just the English language. It's French, it's Italian, it's Portuguese, it's Japanese, Chinese. You can take any language and phonetically have things pronounced that sound the same, have a different meaning, and are spelled differently. But if you hear it or see it and it's written, then it's now used out of context from the actual the way it was meant to be used. And so here, when you have something like a dual gendered God religion, if we take that literally, to me, that's two gods, one of each. That's
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I want to jump ahead.
But is that the meaning? Is that it's what we see, right? But is that the actual meaning? I don't know. It's a hell of a sentence, man.
I can tell you this. Regardless if it's a single God that had dualistic aspects, or a God is actually male and female, two separate entities, is frankly irrelevant from the standpoint of this is not what the Roman Church is teaching, billions of people around the world. This is not what they're teaching. This is antithetical to that. This is as controversial and, heretical as it gets. But it doesn't stop there. I have talked to a few biblical scholars, and I just want you to know that we just got this. And there is so much to unpack here that tonight we're just spitballing. And I need to talk to some people that know a hell of a lot more about Simon and the Roman Jew. I know enough to be dangerous. That's why I wrote those notes up at the top. But let's just leave that aside. All I can say is every Roman scholar or biblical scholar that I've talked to, and I've talked to two so far in the last week, have all said they know exactly who Simon is. They know exactly who the Roman Jew is. And this is consistent with what Scripture says. So let's hold off on that. Okay. The next sentence, his wife, stopped. Jesus was married. Now, if this had been 25, 30 years ago, people would be literally knocking the doors down on my door to say that Jesus was married. Thankfully, the Da Vinci Code, took the bullets and the punches for this statement. But on the other hand, people that understand first century Judaism and what it took for an Essenic male to be a priest, they would know that not only was he required to be married, he was also required to have a son for succession. So if you truly understand that history, this shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be a big deal, but it was. But now it's I think enough people are ready to say, okay, I'm open to this. All right. But not only that, they had children, and they didn't just have one child. They had at least 3 that we know of. They preached in the Northland. Now, the Northland is a coded reference for Scandinavia and of the Scots. That's Scotland. Now, Jimmy, you've heard the lectures that we have given the last few years, and we know that the Templar treasures went through Scotland. We know that the reason that the Templars went up there is because they had been excommunicated from the church. And so that would be the perfect place. And not only that, and I would invite you to ask Haley about this when you interview her. She is doing research right now, and she's writing a new book about a very controversial subject, that Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and their child went to Scotland. And a lot of people say, what are you talking about? Now, I'll let her talk about that. But for her to see this in this message, and she's been working on this for the last few years. She and I have been over to Scotland and done research and found evidence that absolutely supports that premise. And then to have it show up in this message, you're welcome, by the way, Haley. You got to talk to her about that because it's amazing. Okay. Now, the Temple of the Goddess. Do you remember I was telling you about the first document we got that talked about a Templar mission to North America, to the Catskill Mountains to recover scrolls that have been hidden there going back to biblical times? That's what this is. The people of the Temple of the Goddess. Of course, they supported a dual-gendered religion, because in the story, the way that Ralph de Sudley, the Templar knight that was in charge, got the documents he wanted, not all of them, but some of them, is he had to go through a 3-day and night ritual with the priestess of the temple. So they obviously believed in a dual-gendered God. I had no idea the Kohan accepted that. And when he says, my people, remember, I told you that CLY was indigenous. He had an indigenous name. He's talking about the natives. He's talking about the indigenous people of North America. They were the only ones that listened. They are matriarchal to this day. And maybe one of their secrets is this dual-gendered God. We know that they're matriarchal. So it's perfectly consistent with every bit of research we've been doing. This message is like an atom bomb that just of support for all of our research. I can't overstate the importance of this message, not just for me, not just for Haley and other people that have been involved in this. This is an atom bomb of good news, in my opinion, for the world.
Now, there are...
I'll take a drink of beer on that.
Yeah. Well said. There are countless religious scholars from every religion around the world, every corner of everywhere, that can take any text, any statement, anything, and twist and bend it to fit their situation. Do you understand what I'm saying?
True. Well, they're
So-
gonna claim that I'm doing that. But
Well, no. That's not what I'm saying. Scott, quit being defensive.
okay, go ahead. Finish your
Jesus.
thought.
I'm gonna say this. Jesus, Scott, quit being defensive. Okay, so but here's the situation is that the ability to do that because you're learned, you've studied, you respect, you were once you are born into a family and your parents are guiding you through life from day one, you're set. You are not, nobody is going to reason you away from your foundations, right? Nobody's going to factualize you away from that. And once you are in that zone, you are able to look at different things in historical texts that one religion or one scholar is going to present it one way and another is going to present it their way. And to both of them, it is their own truths, and you're not going to change their minds. And they have a way of speaking in confidence, so much confidence that people listening to them believe what they are saying. And this goes with every religion around the world, period. So when you go and you see something like this, it's going to get, I say the word interpolated, that's a very important word, and interpreted their own ways. I see this, which is going to go against the grain of of so many views of religion, but that there appears to be a male and a female God here. It also says that Jesus said this, right? And that Simon and the Roman Jews sold him out, right? That is a gnarly. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it's going to, and so many different interpretations are going to come into this. But when you come down to the most important, all of this is important, but the idea, once again, presented here that Jesus had a wife, Jesus had children, and he preached in Europe. What?
Yeah.
What? Now it's this is heavy stuff, and Cohen and my people, only Cohen in the Temple of the Goddesses, right? And the Temple of the Goddess, I should say, and Cohen and my people listened. Woo, man.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, you can interpret this, I suppose, a lot of different ways. But on the other hand, I think this is about as straightforward of a message as you could possibly have. And if you look at the historical context and you really strip away the dogma, you strip away everything that has been twisted and bent, including the gospels that were written out, this rings true. And I have to say, we have some other very controversial documents that we've published. There's so much material that we have. A lot of it has been lost, or people have not really grasped the significance of it because it's happened to me. We have one encrypted document that was totally in Theban, written in two different languages, Portuguese and French. And when translated into English, is an alternate version of the resurrection. At the end of that particular message, Jimmy, it says, we go to the Northland. So this is not the first time they talk about going up to Scandinavia. There's another message, because they basically, they took Jesus with them. There was no resurrection. This encrypted document talks about an alternate version of the resurrection. And it was deeply encrypted and in two different languages. It's the same message. We got two documents, two messages, the same message in two different languages. So we have consistency here. And if we look at all the other documents, and I'll tell you what, the stuff that we have, when it's all published, people are going to study this long after you and I are dead, Jimmy, and they're going to have to take a long, hard look at this. And frankly, I think what I'm seeing here and what I'm seeing in the other documents, I think the world has to take seriously. And I think this is, I'll just be honest and say, I think it's a better way to go than what the church is teaching now and has been teaching for 1,700 years.
Michael Dean says Cohen is priest. Do you see that
Right
up on the screen?
Yep, I see that. Yep.
See, that's why I love my audience.
Well, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I haven't looked into the code. Go ahead.
Right. Well, so if you take that, what Michael just posted, again, see, this is what's great. I get to honestly play the part of doofus. I don't know shit. I don't know dick when it comes to this stuff. I don't. So, but what I try my best is just to sponge it up, and try to connect the dots on this stuff. So now let's go with what Michael just said. And now let's take a look at that line again and insert priest where Cohen is there. Right?
The priest
in the Northland of the Scots, but only the temple of the goddess and the priests and my people listened.
Wasn't
Holy
Yeshua,
crap, right?
Wasn't
right?
Jesus the priest?
See, if I could go back in history, and everybody says this all the time, what is it that you need answered? Well, I think at the top of my list is the friggin' pyramids. I would like to go and just get there and see how they did it. And however they did it, my ideas will be wrong. I'm going to learn something on that day, right? Okay.
Yeah. We all
probably
would.
number two. I would want to meet Jesus. I don't know if I would want to see the resurrection. I don't know if I really care.
If it even happens.
Well, it's it may but that's not what interests me. Did he die on the cross for our sins and some Roman dude stabbed him, and did he the crucifixions happened. They happened a lot. So there's no denying that that's a possibility. I don't know, but that's not what interests me. No, it doesn't. Okay. The man does. I would like to meet Jesus just to see what's up with that, and have a conversation with him. That's it. And you know what would break my heart is if you go back in time, you go back to 30 AD, right? And you're hanging out in Jerusalem. Herod's there, the Romans, all the brutalness of everything that was going on back then. And there's no Jesus. Who are you talking about? No, there's nobody here. We got Bob. You can meet Bob. He's preaching down there, or whatever. But that's the part that would really bum me out, to waste your ticket to go back in time. And then it turns out that it's not true. But if I could just meet him and just have a conversation, it would be awesome. Yeah.
Well, I'd have a lot of questions for him. One of the things that occurred to me that may seem like a trivial thing and doesn't matter, but it's very curious to me. And at the end here on the third to the last line, and TH, and then the E is on the next line. They broke the word the up, and they broke the word listened up. And, why not just add the E, slide Kohan over, and then finish listened on that second to last line? And I don't know why they did that, but there could be a reason. And I'm not saying I know what the reason is, because I don't, but it just seems strange. They did it up here with gendered. They did it with and they did it with listened. And I don't know why they did that, because if you look at the code, there's plenty of room to add another letter or two, and they didn't do it. And it just makes me wonder why.
What would you ask the historical Jesus?
Well, I guess, here's the other thing that you have to quantify.
Do you literally go, okay, dude, seriously, Son of God? Is that the opening line? Or,
well, first of all, I don't buy
know.
that. I don't buy that for a second, so I wouldn't even waste my time with a question like that. But here's the thing. Are we assuming that we're talking to Jesus when he's 30? If he died at the resurrection, he's not going to be 50. But if Haley's research is right, he lived to be an old man, and he probably died somewhere in the British Isles. So, I would ask him, if that happened, how did you end up here? Why did you come to the British Isles? Why did you go to the Isle of Iona? What was going on? I'd ask him those kind of questions. I know in my mind, the resurrection and the crucifixion is allegorical. I don't believe it happened with him. Now, you're right. They did crucifixions all the time, but did that happen with Jesus? I'm not sure that it did. I mean, the whole 3 days, in the tomb. I mean, this is analogous to the Son's death and then resurrection after 3 days, when it stands still on December 20th, 21st, and 22nd, and then it rises again, right? So
Right.
This goes back to the whole Isis Osiris mysteries and the death and resurrection rituals that you have, not only in those traditions, but also in Freemasonry. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't waste my time with that stuff, because I don't believe that stuff even happened. I'd want to talk about his real history, and I would absolutely talk about what was the true message. Is this dual gendered God religion what you are really preaching? That would probably be my first question.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think that what I would I was kind of speaking in a half comedic way when I said, Son of God thing. But you know what I would do?
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I would do? I would just sit down and just talk. That's it. You can get a read on somebody by just having a normal conversation. And that's what I would do. It would certainly answer a lot of questions. And I definitely, God, man, I'm just trying not to offend everybody. But it's always been fascinating to me since I was a kid, and I'm certainly not the first person to say this. Every religion can't be right. Maybe one of them is right. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But they all can't be. And when you get into metaphor and allegory, are there similarities between some of them? Yes, there
Absolutely.
are.
Absolutely.
And that to me throws another wrench into this whole thing. And so like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what religion, there are scholars that study that religion that absolutely steadfastly know what they are talking about based on their life and their interpretation and how they have studied this history. That's it. So to them, it's their truth. And I totally respect that.
Yeah.
But I just have to step back and go, man, can everybody, and when you really get deep into this and you look at Buddhism, Hinduism, right? Forget about the different versions of Christianity and then throw in the Mormons, right? Or whatever, all of the different branches of things. And then you've got a Bible with two different, an Old and a New Testament that to me clearly are not even the same. It's not, it's different religions, but yet it's the same book. I'm not a scholar, but I've read it, and I'm just more confused about everything that's going on out there than before. And then do you remember, God, I'm just going to piss off everybody. Do you remember a documentary?
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember a documentary called Zeitgeist?
I remember hearing about it. I don't think I ever saw it.
Watch it tonight. Okay, the director of that, he's been on the show and his books and everything. And so anyway, when I first saw that, I'm going to say 2005, and it caused quite the ripple around the world. So I go, and the opening 15 or 20 minutes to Zeitgeist, to anybody that has a general interest in any of these subjects, which is, are we lied to, ancient history and religions and so forth. You go and you see that first 20 minutes of Zeitgeist, and you just sit back and go, well, it's all a lie, right? So, and then the different scholars and free thinkers, right, and researchers out there went and picked the movie apart and the statements that were made in this first 20 minutes. I'm not going to get into those details. But when that happened, then I started to really step back, Scott, and go, okay, one thing is for sure, I was right. Every religion can't be right, because everybody picked it apart from their own viewpoint. You see what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, man. So that's where I just kind of left it. Anybody can go and debate, or different versions of Christians or this or that or different, whatever, can go at it all day long. It's meaningless unless you were there. And if you weren't there, then that's it. You're just basing
Jimmy,
it on what you've learned.
Jimmy, let me ask you a question. Okay. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm asking you a serious question. And if you don't want to answer, I understand. I respect that.
Does it have to do with the Vikings?
No, we're not going there. No, that's way too controversial. Okay.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Piss off every Minnesotan there is. Don't go there.
Okay.
Right.
What's your question?
Now, my question is this. When you first read this message, because you've had this thing for a few hours, okay? Tell me honestly, how does this hit you? Do you think there's something to this? Do you think we're on to something, or do you think we're on something with this message? And I'm being a little, facetious here, but I'm being serious. I'm just curious, how did this hit Jimmy Church when he read it the first time?
Yeah. Okay. So my first thought, aside from the first line, because the first line where that period is after religion, I read that 4 or 5 times back to back. I didn't even read the rest of it. That was too much for me to take in. That's number one. But my overall bang thought was this: what's the provenance? What was this translated from? And what was that translated from? I want to see that string of paperwork, and to see if there's anything that's lost in the translations. And that's my question. What was this translated from? Was this translated from a 2nd century Greek translation of Aramaic? Right? Is this something that goes back to the shores of southern France? Right? What's the provenance, and where are the translations coming from? That's my question.
Okay,
Because if it gets aged, right? If this goes back 1,800 years, 1,900 years to first and second generation hangers on of Jesus, this becomes a very, 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 very important document and statement. Very important.
Okay, I can appreciate that. The simple answer to the question is this is a I guess I would say an updated version that was written down in 1908. It was encrypted, and to protect the message, because at that time the world certainly wasn't ready for this information. We've already talked about some of the other stuff that we have that gets into ETs and other controversial religious subject matter related to this. But again, I guess the only thing that I would say is that this information was passed down through the family. These people that were the leadership of the Templars were the ideological and biological descendants of Jesus and Mary. This was passed down through the family. And for that reason, and being a Templar in 3 different orders, I understand how this works. And so, but on the other hand, I'm also a scientist, forensic geologist, all of that stuff. And so we've done all the vetting that we can possibly do, not just with this document, but all the other documents. And at this point, sure, there are a lot of questions. There's going to be people that say, this is BS. Prove it, is what I would say. Prove that it's not real. Good luck with that. But I have to say that at the end of the day, I understand the history, but so all this, going back to the original source material, is probably never going to happen. So what it boils down to for me, at the end of the day, I'm doing everything I can to vet this material, but I guess I have to say to myself, does this ring true? Does it feel like it's right? Does it feel like it's the truth?
It's powerful. No matter what. It
feels really good, Jim. That doesn't prove it. But for me, it's consistent with a huge body of material that I've been working on for 25 years. And this is almost like, in many ways, a crescendo of support for the work that we've done. Does it prove it definitively? Probably not, to some people, but for me, it just fits.
There are some out there that'll decode this and say, yep, it says that the earth is 6,000 years old. Hey, Scott.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah, I know. We're going to be hanging out at the Contact Modalities Expo, man.
It's going to be great.
May. I cannot wait for this.
I'll bring a brand new deck of cards.
Man, and now listen, everybody that's going to be hanging out with Haley, Scott, and I there. The organization behind this event it's just extraordinary. And who we've got speaking, Chris Bledsoe is going to be hanging out, man. We're going to be doing a sky watch, and all of the lectures, the panels, but doing it in the setting of a lakeside resort is going to be so much fun. And I want everybody just to come up to me and say, can you introduce me to Scott? Because you're unapproachable. So,
thanks a lot, pal.
Everybody just come up to me. I'm a nice guy. You can talk to me. And then I'll bring you over, and we're going to get to hang out, man. And I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah,
it's going to be so much fun.
Jimmy, it's awesome, man. Listen, I we've done this many, many times. We've been to a lot of events, but I got to tell you, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your support. And, you got a lot of fans out there, but I got to tell you, I've been through a lot with this dude, and he's the real deal. And, you know, sometimes we drive each other crazy.
Oh,
but-
yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, when you
Yeah.
when you pretend like you know how to play cards, I mean, it's like, really, Jimmy?
You
But
know
I got to
what?
tell you, let me finish. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right.
You're,
all right.
you're fucking solid. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
And-
whoa.
and it was the beer. It's Haley's fault. She gave me a beer. No, I just want to say I appreciate your friendship. Thank you for your support. And I can't wait to see it. We're just going to have fun. And I want to do this till we drop. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, brother. I want to let everybody know that we spent many nights playing cards, and it's fun, it's vicious,
Yeah.
but it's so much fun, right?
Yeah.
They're friends. Anyway, Scott and I got involved in a pretty gnarly round together of cards, and we were the last two standing, and I won. And let me tell you, I lost a lot, but this one moment, right, where and I wasn't supposed to win, and I did. And I thought Scott was going to kick my ass. It was a bad night. And you stopped talking.
I just had to vent. I had to get it out of my system.
Woo!
I don't know how you did it, but you pulled it out of you nowhere. And, you know,
I
good-
did.
good
I
for you.
felt
We're happy for you.
I felt so bad. I did not want to win. I did not. You deserved it. But anyway, Scott, I love you, brother. Haley, thank you so much. We'll have Haley on the show, Haley Ramsey, in a couple of weeks. And I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, I want you guys to go and get that other document decoded. Scott, enjoy the rest of your evening. Haley, love you. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy. We'll chat soon.
The best. Scott Wolter, delivered tonight. So there you go. We've given you the document. We've given you the decoding and how it was done. And, of course, the message itself. What do you think? What do you think? It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Scott, thank you so much. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night on the show, Fritz Zimmerman is here. We had to, of course, reschedule Fritz from last week due to the fires breaking out here in Southern California. But he is here tomorrow, and we will be talking about the dark side of ancient America. All of that and more tomorrow night with Fritz. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.